Welcome to episode number 28, where we're going to talk about how to get out of fight or flight mode when decluttering and all things nervous system resilience. You are listening to the Decluttering Club podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Mueller, and it's my mission to equip women to declutter their homes, their time, and their lives so that they can cherish what truly matters. All right. Hello, Decluttering Club. I am here today with a special guest. I'm here with my friend Leah Davidson, and she is an expert in nervous system regulation. We're going to talk about fight or flight. We're going to talk about what to do if you feel completely stuck and all kinds of other good stuff. Leah, do you want to take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So, my name is Leah Davidson, and I work with the nervous system. I am all things about the nervous system. I think the nervous system is probably the foundation upon which we build almost
Mm.
everything in our life. So that is my coaching niche. I'm also a speech language pathologist, and I work in the area of traumatic brain injury. And so I'm all things about the brain. That's really where my love affair of the brain started. And I am Canadian. I live in Toronto, Ontario with my husband, and we recently became empty nesters. We have a blended family of 5 kids. And so I had been following your challenge and doing some decluttering myself. So I'm very familiar now with what happens when you're confronted with so much stuff and the decisions, and what
Mhm.
happens with my own nervous system when I saw it, even though it's something that I am the expert in, I was still very activated. So
Mhm.
it's totally normal. So I can't wait
Ah,
to dive in and talk more about it with you.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it so much. And, I think I love, I listened to a podcast that you were on, and it just spoke to me so much because I think we spend a lot of time, thinking, well, I shouldn't think like that. Like it's just silly for me to think like that. Like we think, why am I so attached to whatever, right? To this thing. And I think your work really explains it so well that
Mhm.
it's not just like feelings are actually super important
That's right.
and we don't want to like blow them off. So I love what you're doing. Okay, so give us a little bit of background. I know this happens so often, right? Where someone in my community is getting ready to declutter, maybe they're in the middle of it and they just like feel completely either like freaking out or they're paralyzed. Can you tell us a little bit
Yeah.
about like what's going on there?
Yeah. So essentially, what our nervous system is, it's the way our brain and our body communicate with each other. It's the connection. And you can think of it like your nervous system has a radar detector, a scanner in it, and it's constantly scanning for safety and danger. And that's all it's scanning for because it's all about survival. Our nervous system is running the show behind the scenes. It's taking care of your heartbeat, your breathing, your digestion. And it is scanning because it wants to make sure that you're safe. So when something reads as dangerous, which, in evolutionary times, it would be like a tiger chasing us. But nowadays, things that are dangerous to us are things that are unfamiliar, or maybe things that we're uncomfortable with, or things
Mm,
that have like some type of negative memory, or even just something, if we're trying to remove something, it can be
mm,
seen as danger. And when our nervous system reads danger, it wants to protect us. So it goes
mhm.
into a state of protection. And the first line of protection is always activation. So that's where
Okay.
you sort of feel like maybe your heart starts pounding a little bit, your breathing is a little bit more shallow. And we go into either what is from most of us know as fight or flight. And they're
Mhm.
sort of the same flavors of this activation.
Mm,
Just one is more just you want to go towards it, fighting it, and one you want to pull away and just run from it. Now, there's another part of our nervous system that can get introduced as well, where we have a little bit more of paralysis introduced, and we call that the freeze state. And that's a
mm,
combination of activation and as well a combination of disconnection. And so
mm.
sometimes we'll encounter something and we'll freeze. So when you have these reactions, nothing's gone wrong. It's your
Okay.
nervous system's way of saying to you, hey, I'm not comfortable with what we're about to do. That's it. That's all
Mm,
it's telling you. And then it's our job to stop and pause, sort of take care of our nervous system, calm it down, saying, yeah, I know this is hard. Maybe we're going to do things that will help regulate us, help calm us down. And then we can start thinking again. Because one thing for us to know is when we get in this state of activation, when we become dysregulated, we lose access to our thinking skills. We lose access to our decision-making skills, our problem-solving skills. We're not able to regulate our emotions when we're offline like that. So when you are stuck and you're paralyzed and you can't think straight, well, it's because you can't. Because
So you
physiologically,
actually
you
can't think,
actually
like you're
can't think.
literally incapable of because of the nervous system kind of
That's
hijacked.
right. Because think about it, when you're in
Mhm,
survival mode, you don't need to make decisions or
mhm,
think or reason something or have compassion or be curious. You don't need
alright,
any of those things. You just need to decide, do I run? Do I stay? Like, what is important for my survival? And
mhm,
so that is how we're wired. And it's brilliant, really, because if we are in danger, we don't want to be inconvenienced by those other things. But
mhm,
the problem is in our society today, majority of things that ring as danger are not dangerous to us at all.
mm,
And we get activated, we lose our thinking skills, we think that something's wrong. This is a bad decision. Oh, my gut's telling me I shouldn't throw this out. This is a bad decision. When
mhm,
no, it's just you're activated. Once you
mhm,
calm yourself down, you reintroduce your thinking skills, and now you can start with curiosity and reasoning and decision making. And
uh,
that's when you can start decluttering.
oh, I love how you said nothing has gone wrong. That is
Nothing.
that's the best news ever, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just because it feels like danger. It feels like we're gonna die. There's the
Yeah.
tiger, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but why? Why do we feel like so you're just saying it's just because this is construed as danger.
Yeah. And I love also saying nothing has gone wrong because I think we do make it out as it must be a weakness. There must be something wrong with me. Maybe it's a moral failing. Maybe this is something, why is somebody else better at it than me?
Mm,
And just
mhm,
understanding it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your nervous system. And your nervous system is unique. It's like your fingerprint. It's different for everybody. So throughout your life, you've had these experiences that have imprinted your nervous system all the way along. And that's why it's going to look different for you, for me, for a sibling, for a partner. Everybody's going to have a different approach because they have a different nervous system. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just you're you. And
mm,
you have to learn, what does your nervous system look like? How does it respond? And what can you do to calm it down?
mm. I love it. This is so good. Okay, so what do we do? We're in fight or we're activated.
Mhm.
Something, we maybe we open that scary room, like we have what we call scary rooms, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't want to look behind that door and all of a sudden we're activated. And then what should we do?
Yeah. So the first thing is you want to recognize that you're activated.
Mhm.
And sometimes it is just a matter of knowing, I know I'm going to get activated when this happens.
Okay.
And we start taking stock of, what does activation look for me? Does it show up in my body of tension? Because it always shows up somewhere in your body. Your body tries to communicate with you. Does it show up like I start feeling my thoughts are racing, my head is pounding, I have sweaty palms, I get a bit of a stomach ache? Or do I just have like tension where I notice my shoulders are clenched, my back starts hurting? So
Mm,
those are all indicators. So that's what really you're getting into your body. When you get
mm,
into your body, you start finding, is there tension? Is there stress? Is there overwhelm? So you want to do that first, get into your body. The second piece is your body is never going to relax or want to relax if it feels it's actually in danger. So you
mhm,
have to stop and literally, I tell people, put your hand on your heart and
mhm,
ask yourself the question, am I safe? I'm not
mhm.
asking if I feel safe because I've already established that my body doesn't feel safe. I'm
Okay.
asking, am I empirically safe? Like, is there anything dangerous in this closet, in this drawer, in this room? And the answer is going to be no. So now we've sent a message from our brain to our body. that no, we're all good. We know that our body is like, oh, we don't feel so good. And so the third thing we do is we have to learn how to relax our body. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
first step is essentially, do I feel safe? Am I safe? Those are interchangeable. You can walk into a room and do, am I safe first? And then, empirically look and then scan your body. So it doesn't matter which one you do,
Okay.
but you have to establish safety. You have to get in your body. And the third piece is you have to relax your body. And the reason you're relaxing your body is because that is what is going to sort of down regulate you. And we do that a couple of super easy ways. One way is just through our breathing. We
Mm-hmm.
can take a nice breath in and then focus on the exhalation. That is what actually moves us from activation to calm, is the exhalation. So you can just do a couple of quick breaths in and then one long
Mm-hmm.
exhalation. People do things. There's a technique called the 4-7-8 technique. You breathe in for 4 through the nose, you hold for 7, and then you release 8, exhalation through the mouth. And again, you see that the exhalation is longer because that's calming you down. So breathing is a great way to calm yourself and regulate yourself. One of my most preferred ways is something that I call the rag doll. And it
Okay.
basically is you scan your body, you notice that it's tense, and you just kind of collapse.
You just,
You just like
you
let
just,
everything hang out, just relax your shoulders, your arms, almost like you're dropping. I had a client last year. She shared with me, she was teaching her kids how to do this, and they were like, oh, it's kind of like the song or what happens in the movie Toy Story when
Mhm.
all the toys are busy moving and talking and dancing around, and then somebody notices that Andy's coming and they
Yeah,
yell, Andy's coming. And all the toys just completely like drop to
they
the
just,
ground like little
they
rag dolls.
collapse.
They collapse.
Mhm.
So essentially, that's what you need to do. You need to
Mm.
collapse as if somebody has just yelled, Andy's coming. The reason that works is a relaxed body cannot house stress. So, a relaxed body, whenever you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, or maybe you're frustrated with your kids or your partner, if you just relax your body,
Mhm.
it is sending a message that you're safe, that
Mhm.
you're, because if you can relax your body, you obviously are safe. If you can stop to breathe, you obviously are safe. And then it releases all the tension. And then it invites your thinking skills, your CEO can come back online. So those are really the 3 steps. Am I safe? Do I feel safe? Relax my body, reintroduce my thinking skills. And you're going to
Mhm.
have to keep doing that over and over and over again. And nothing has gone wrong if you find you have to do it hundreds and hundreds of times a day, because we get activated hundreds
Uh,
and hundreds of times
right.
a day.
Isn't it just fascinating that we have to learn how to relax?
Yes, it
Like,
is.
this is just so interesting to me. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally a skill,
Yeah.
breathing, like like
Yeah.
something that we do unconsciously. We can learn this technique,
Yeah.
and it can change everything. It seems so fundamental, but
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
and
what.
it kind of makes sense because our brain, that frontal part of our brain, it's brilliant. It learns everything. But the challenge is that it also learns all these threats that you've had when you were younger that
Mhm.
aren't really threats, and you carry that through your life. So you are constantly perceiving threats based on past history. So,
Mm,
back when I was in elementary school, if somebody had told me I was very disorganized, and I took that to heart, maybe that really upset me, my brain learns that that becomes sort of a trigger. And then
that's
as I
negative,
go
yeah.
through life and somebody says that to me, it becomes a perceived threat. And when I perceive a threat, the brain does not know the difference between perceived and real. It also does
Mm,
not know the difference between past and present.
mm,
So I will be constantly being confronted by things that my brain has learned in the past that maybe it wasn't a good experience. And so my
mhm,
brain's like, I'm going to help you out. I'm just going to give you the same reaction, even though it may not be appropriate. And you're
mhm.
just going to respond automatically.
Mhm.
without even knowing why you're responding. Sometimes you're just like, I don't know, I just had this reaction. Well, it's because your nervous system is like, I'm taking care of it for you. I've remembered
Mhm.
it, but we can unlearn it as well. But we can only unlearn it when we get into that relaxed body.
When we slow down, when we establish
Yeah.
that safety and relax. Oh my gosh. Well, and
Yeah.
I guess if you think about it, like maybe you did get in trouble
Yeah. That's
when you
right.
were a kid. Like maybe
Yeah.
you literally got in trouble
Yeah.
for being messy or for
Yeah.
whatever, for forgetting
Completely.
something,
Yeah.
right?
Or we
And
interpret something a certain way. Like, who knows the way, like somebody
mhm,
looked at me sideways a certain way and I interpreted it, and this has carried with me. Or, like
yeah,
you said, somebody said it, or maybe I overheard somebody getting in trouble. And so I made a mental note, never
mhm,
do that because I don't want to get in trouble. These are all things like that we just pick up and we learn, and we don't even realize it just becomes part of, sometimes it even becomes part of who we are or who we think we are. These are just learned experiences. And then our nervous system responds as if it's happening right here, right now, and it's danger.
I love how you said that the brain doesn't distinguish between past and present.
No,
Like
not
it
at all.
doesn't even know. So it's just like the time that you got in trouble that you did feel activated 20
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah, it's gonna come
Just
up. That's essentially what post-traumatic stress disorder is that you experience something in the past that left you with a very traumatic response. That's something that your nervous system wasn't able to handle at that time. And then it gets encoded with
mhm,
all the sensory stuff that happened around the same time. And then even years later, what can happen is something sensory comes up. Maybe it was a smell, maybe it was like something that you see, and it brings up the system, the memory comes up that, oh, I know what this was. This was dangerous. Even though you're not experiencing the same thing, but it recognizes all these sensory things and it responds as if it was in that time past. And that's
mm,
essentially what happens with post traumatic stress is we make associations with past experiences as if we're experiencing them now.
mhm, mhm. And again, nothing has gone wrong.
Nope.
Like this makes sense
Yes.
in our
Yeah.
brains.
Nothing has gone wrong. This makes sense for our brains. We just have to interrupt it because we
Mhm,
do know that as much as it makes sense for survival, but we
mhm.
no longer need to have that level of protection. Now, if you are in extreme danger, then it is a good level of protection. So we don't want to
Sure.
get rid of it completely, but
Right.
we need to be able to differentiate. And that's why it's an important skill to practice. Am I safe? Do I feel safe? Calming yourself down so that when you encounter things, you will be able to go through that process over and over and over again.
Right. So we can unlearn it when it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. But we still have
Yeah.
our reactions if we,
We're still going to have it. We're just trying to identify it and interrupt it so that we
mhm,
can go in a different direction. Instead of
mhm.
taking it where it wants to go, where it's like, I can't help it. This is where I'm going. We recognize, we interrupt, and we choose a different direction. But we can only choose that different direction when we are regulated, when we're in a relaxed body. That's why it's so important to do those three things before we try to choose.
Love it. Oh my gosh, so good. Okay. All right. What other tips do you have? Because again, like I think everybody finds themselves in this state, from time to time or maybe frequently, but I definitely see it a lot with people that are, like maybe traumatized and the clutter is either a result or the
Yeah.
cause, I don't even know, but what else should they keep in mind?
Well, I think that the nervous system and emotions are very tied together. They're not the same thing, but they're very tied together. I'd like to look at it like the nervous system is the state or the flavor that you're in, and then
Mhm.
your emotions will fall under a certain flavor. So when you're in an activated state, something I call team hyper, that means that your emotions are going to be ones of sort of anxiety and anger and defensiveness and frustration. So they're sort of flavored and nuanced with danger. But then we have another protective response, which is a response of disconnection, which is what I call team hypo. And that's where everything sort of slows down. The emotions down there are going to be flavored more of helpless and sad and lonely and so forth. Now, I think when it comes to decluttering, is that we're often tied to things on a very emotional level. And when we become dysregulated, we'll see our emotions will follow whatever our nervous system state is in. So if we're in
Okay.
that hyper aroused state or activated, our emotions are going to reflect that. We may get, more frustrated and more snippy, and you can start to see that attachment to certain emotions versus the other way around. If we're in that lower state, maybe becoming much more sentimental and feeling lonely and sad. And then at the
Mhm.
same time, our emotions can be triggered by objects and memories that come
Mhm.
up, and that we want to be able to just allow those emotions and just allow them to be there, knowing that they're not going to be the ones making decisions for us. That we want to include our emotions, but we need to first regulate ourselves so that we can be in a space where we can allow emotions like curiosity and patience and tolerance to come. And those emotions come when we're regulated. So I think that that regulation is not just for our thinking, that regulation is for the emotional processing as well, that often is tied to, doing things like decluttering.
Okay. So if I hear you correctly, if we're, let's say we're dysregulated, either we're team hypo, right?
Mhm.
We're like, we can't get moving,
Yeah,
nothing, like, or we're hyper, or we're team hyper. Either way, we're saying we should really just regulate.
that's right.
And then we'll unlock, right? What you said, the
Yeah,
CEO, then our
yeah,
thinking skills will come back online. And then we're gonna actually feel a little bit
yeah.
better.
That's right. We have access to feelings that are those feelings that we have in a safe state. So that's where we have the
Mm, mhm.
patience and tolerance and resilience and compassion and curiosity and all these emotions that most of us want to feel. We are going to feel those when we are in that home regulated, resilient state. So that's why it
Right.
always does come back to
Yeah.
regulation. You're stuck on
Yeah.
something. Start by trying to regulate yourself. Start by reminding yourself of safety. Now, we've talked about relaxing your body. If you
Mhm.
find that you're on team hypo, where you feel like, well, I just sort of feel unmotivated and I don't feel like I'm sad and I'm not able to move as much. That's just your body needs to add a little bit more energy to it. So you may decide that you're going to do some breathing, which is more focused on the inhalation. So,
Mm,
like getting ready to get into a boxing match where you're like,
mm,
doing sort of that
mm,
kind of
mhm.
breathing, that is bringing some activation in. You may find that sometimes it is just movement in general. Okay, well, get up off the bed. Take a few steps towards the closet, open the closet, maybe, stretch a little bit, move. To get regulated when you're lower, we need to add energy in. So, what are the ways that you can add energy? Maybe that's why you're going to put on a song that
Mhm.
helps you get going, helps you get dancing
Mhm.
around a little bit to get that energy. You may
Just
start
get
from
yeah,
there. Yeah.
that's so good. Yeah, because I think sometimes we try to skip to, like, I just need to, feel differently, and we're skipping that part,
Yeah.
that regulation,
Yeah. Yeah.
and, we're actually probably it's taking way longer,
Yeah.
because we're kinda going the long way
Yeah.
around, so
Yeah.
I love that.
And we don't want to skip. We want to get regulated, but we also want to accept where we are. And that's why it
Mm,
sort of is where I said at the beginning, get to know like what's going on in my body.
mm,
Why am I feeling this tension? Not like this, I have to get rid of this tension. Just like,
right.
oh, okay, there's that tension. Accepting where we are. Sometimes when we get regulated, we have to keep working on it, but we want to remove the shame and the judgment and all those things that help us stay in dysregulation. Sometimes, especially if you're in that hypo aroused state, it's very hard to move into regulation. This is
Mhm,
why it is often helpful that you have support, especially if you're feeling stuck. Because if you have somebody, maybe it's a family member, a friend, or a coach that can hold that regulated space for you, and maybe just reach up a hand and invite you in, or reach down. And, I look at it as, if I'm safe in that regulation, I'm happy to sometimes come down with you and sit with you while you're feeling really low and be that support. Because I think that's what co-regulation is. This is our ability. I can't do it on my own. I need somebody to help me. And that's the benefit of having a friend or a partner or a coach. This is why so often we need coaches. It's for
Yes.
that co-regulation, that I'm not
Mhm.
quite ready, or I'm not sure how to regulate on my own. That's
Mhm.
okay. Let me sit with you. Let me
We
model
can
it for you.
borrow
Let
from someone
borrow
else.
from me. Yeah.
Like, the energy really does transmit at
It
that point.
really, really does. In fact, that's how, when we're younger, we don't have the ability to self-regulate. It's all through co-regulation. But we
Mm,
make the mistake in thinking, as we get older, that we don't still need
mm,
co-regulation, but we
yeah.
do. We really need co-regulation. And so
Mm,
don't be afraid to reach out to somebody and say, I'm really having a hard time with this. Like,
mhm,
and
mm, so
they
good.
can share that with you.
And that makes such a difference.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it
Oh
does.
my goodness. Leah, tell people, where can they connect with you? Where can they learn more?
I am on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. And my website's leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com. And I have a podcast called Building Resilience. So we talk about all these different things to help with nervous system resilience and your stress and burnout. That's where you'll get a lot more information.
I think it's brilliant. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
So welcome. So happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Take care, everyone. That's all we have for you today. If you enjoyed this podcast, would you leave us a review? It would really help us get the word out. To start your decluttering journey, go to thedeclutteringclub.com. That is declutteringclub.com. I'll see you next time.